We are here. We are live. Beer Guys Radio. Thanks, everybody, for coming and joining us this week and hanging out. We're super excited. We have an awesome guest with us here. We have Larry Horwitz. Larry is with Crooked Hammock. He's with Crooked Hammock now, but he's been got a long resume, right, Larry?
Yeah, I've been around for a minute, right?
I've been around. Yeah.
He's been everywhere.
Somehow we get old.
It does.
Yes.
This is, for those that watch us, this is my first week with eyeglasses on, Larry. Talking about getting old. I'm stubborn about it. Like, I waited until I was literally blind before I go to the eye doctor. He's like, yeah, we need to get you some glasses there. I'm like, fine. So, but you know what? I can see, which is handy. It does come in handy.
It's very handy. My partner recently got both distance and reading glasses all at once.
Yeah.
She's like, this is terrible. And I'm like, some of us have had glasses our whole life.
Yeah. Brian, you've had them a while. You got contacts, but you have to pop the glasses every now and then, right?
I've had, I wear contacts on the show because I'm vain, I guess.
Yeah.
I like my glasses. Actually, they're more convenient, and it just kind of continuity at this point in time. I just haven't been wearing them, so I don't. But I've been wearing glasses since, man. Like, you're really young. I was always nearsighted, but I'm at a point now where my eyes, I could always see stuff close up. Now, looking through the glasses, I have to move them up so I can focus on things close up. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not getting bifocals yet. It's easy enough to just lift the glasses up, and I can see everything pristinely close up. I can't do it through the glasses anymore.
I fought it for years, right?
Yeah.
And then, I work with my hands a lot for obvious reasons, and I do a lot of small technical work. And I was measuring some can seams about 4 years ago, and I was like, what happened to the micrometer? Somebody messed it up. The letters are gone. And all the guys that work for me are like, no, old man, you just can't read it.
You're just blind now.
All right. I already have prescription safety glasses, right? And I was like, I'm doing the right thing. And then, my eye doctor's like, so it seems like you need prescription bifocal safety glasses. I'm like,
The next step. It's similar to that, Larry. We'd go, like, Brian and I would go out to eat, and I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, why do they keep printing these with blurry text? Is this the new thing here?
You're doing this now, right?
Yeah, I'm big about it. And you know what? I still remember, like, seeing the quote old folks at the restaurant, like, taking a magnifying glass or trying to do this, and I'm there. I am there.
People now. I don't know.
We are those people.
Who took away the young me and gave me grandpa hair? I don't know.
I got to start eating dinner at 4:30, in bed by 6.
I'm holding out on that.
Fight it. We were talking about concerts earlier, Larry, and like the 80s bands, they're doing shows at Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Our friend Billy, he was saying, he went to Guns N' Roses last night. And he's like, man, these weeknight concerts are killing us old folks here. He's a few years younger than us. Thank you. See, we got a vote for the glasses already there, so I'm doing all right.
Good work,
man.
Tim. They make you look smart. That's all.
There we go. That's it.
Finally,
another
something
level.
makes him look smart.
And it looks like I got anime eyes with the way it magnifies there.
Right?
So yeah. See,
people
that's it. Everybody here with the glasses, man. So that's what. Yeah, I was thinking about trying to keep up with them. I was going to order another pair because I found some frames that I really like, some Oakley frames. And I'm like, hey, I think those would look pretty good on me because for home, I'm like, I want a super light pair, something I'm not going to mind, wearing in front of the computer all day. So, gosh.
Not to shamelessly plug an internet-based business, but there is starts with a Z, won't say the name.
Okay.
In China, that makes these glasses for about $20 a pair. I destroy glasses.
They work well and all that. They get the prescriptions right and everything.
They're awesome. It's a little Wild West, right? Where you're like, all right, I'm going to order a couple of pair, and then I found a frame that worked for me, and after that, my optometrist is like, why don't you buy your glasses from us? I'm like, because they're $500.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I may have my glasses from the same company that starts with a Z as you, and I did the same thing where I bought a bunch of pairs, and then I found a frame that fits my face well, feels good on my face, and I have like 4 different versions of it.
Yeah.
I even have one that's got the I forget what they call it, transitions or photo gray or whatever, and that my dad used to wear, and I always liked them when he used to wear them. They turn dark outside, so I'll wear those when I'm in lieu of sunglasses if I'm driving and doing the whole glasses thing. But
They're
yeah,
handy. I can't tell you how many pairs of these have ended up underneath the wheel of a forklift, right?
yeah.
I'm so paranoid now that I'm going to drop these, crush them, step on them, something.
That's why you
fun.
need. That's why you need a bunch of the cheapies from some
Yeah.
Southeast Asian based company, right? I think it takes
Yeah.
it takes me like 3 weeks to get them, but at $20 a pair, you're like, yes, I will take 5 pair of those.
That's it. Easy enough. I'll get me like a Pez dispenser where I can just pop them out when I need another set there. It'd be
Well,
good to go.
when you finally decide you're going to go whole hog and get the transition bifocals, you'll end
Yeah.
up with like fistfuls of pairs scattered around the
See,
house. Right?
you just pick them up where you need them. That's I'm that way with pocket knives now, Larry. I
Right?
collect pocket knives, so I
Yeah.
just got. If someone came in, they'd be like, "This guy's a freak," because you go every. Why is there a pocket knife on the bathroom counter? I was like, well, I opened an Amazon package, then I went to the bathroom, I sat it down. Now I got a knife in the bathroom. So
My current favorite pocket knife is a little Gerber fold open box knife.
Yeah.
It's like this big when it's folded down.
yeah,
It's wicked sharp. I have your affliction for sharp objects, right?
yeah.
Brian
Brian just.
everything comes from Amazon. There you go. See, that's great.
That's my Gerber box,
See.
my box
Yep.
cutter, breakdown, whatever. It's got replaceable X-Acto blades in it, and I use the heck out of this. And it's even got a pry bar. So if I'm opening like a cigar box or something like that, it's got a perfect little pry bar for it. And it's kind of my beater knife. I've got some nicer knives that I don't want to get too gunky, so I bought yet another knife just to pound on. And I really like this Gerber.
box
Yeah, I really
knife
do.
there.
Now
Yeah.
that everything comes to us in a box with paper tape on it, right? I mean,
Yes.
like literally,
Yeah.
I live in Lower Delaware, which is a wonderful place. I'm near the beach, but the closest Target's 45 minutes away, and that used to be a problem. But these days, my wife's like, just order it on Amazon. You can wait till tomorrow, right? Or you could even drive 3 miles and pick it up at the Amazon, the magic box.
Yes.
The
yeah.
magic box.
Wait until tomorrow. I'm impatient now when things are 2 days. I'm like,
Like,
because I'm in an
what
area
happened?
now. Yeah, I'm in an area now where it's like, hey, if you order it by 10 a.m., we'll have it to you by 2 p.m. So I'm like, there we go.
And
I was just talking with Brian about back in the day, since we're all old guys here, except for young buck Nate there.
He looks
I
like
remember
he's at least
the-
25. It's coming for you too,
he's
buddy.
coming.
It's
He's
coming.
on the way, man. He's on the way. But Larry, you remember stuff used to be allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. There was none of this 2-day stuff. You had to wait month and a half to get.
You had to send a check and a self-addressed return envelope, and you were like,
Oh yeah.
"Hope it works."
Yeah. Good luck.
SASE. I had that was something I was aware of very well.
I'm
on
it was
day
nice because you'd be surprised. You'd get stuff. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot
forgot
I
I
ordered
ordered that.
this.
Yeah.
Remember the late night television? Call now.
Oh yeah,
Call
I'm like,
now,
you
yeah.
got okay. That sounds like a great plan. I'm on it.
I can't
I'm
wait
on
to
it.
get a set of Ginsu knives.
Yeah. All the great music, all the compilations. Now that's what I call rock and roll. So
Right?
That's right.
For 1995,
Ah.
you two could be a yacht rock king.
man, I'm on it.
Oh,
Uh
so good.
oh. Look, we've got. I didn't know this was a competition, but
Oh.
it is now.
I gotta tell you, this is my summer trim right here.
The
Summer
summer
beard.
beard.
Yeah, it's the
fair
summer
enough.
beard.
Fair enough.
I hate the stereotype, but my girl loves a big fluffy beard. I'm like,
Yeah.
I look a little bit like a Jewish version of Santa Claus when I'm all fluffed out, and she's like, "Don't care, it's for me."
It's
Totally
yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's it. That's yeah. Nate and I are the odd guys in craft beer without facial hair. There, we're the oddballs here. Brian, that's why Brian has to have such a big wizard beard, is because he has to have enough
He's make-
facial hair for the
enough
law.
Making
for
up
3 people.
Yeah, he's got to make up. He's got to make up for it there.
Well, Brian, I respect the beard, brother. Solid work.
There
Well,
you
thank
go.
you.
Good
Well,
beard.
That's I put in a lot of effort in doing almost nothing with it. So
Yeah,
People don't
laziness
understand.
pays off.
It's not about the laziness pays off, although I respect that. It's the lifestyle accommodations you have to make with a head of hair on your face.
true.
Right?
Yeah.
Eating is different. The whole situation shifts.
I do a lot of eating like this now,
Just-
instinctively.
Tuck
Just
it
if
in,
I don't,
tuck it
then I'm
in.
like, oh, I got cheese sauce in my beard again.
Little wing situation over here. Little
Yes.
shaving cream over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got
Bird's
it.
nest.
Nothing up
harboring
here anymore.
fugitives.
So, right.
Yeah,
The
down
whole-
here it's
Yeah, it's just migrated, right?
Just
stuff,
grow it out
man.
and comb it over. Sooner or later, it'll come all the way up.
Cheers, Coach. Yeah, beards or no beards, we're rocking it. We still
Yeah,
know good
exactly,
beer.
right.
We'll have a good time with it.
I'm too
Speaking
lazy
of
to-
beer, we promise we will talk about beer. This just isn't all about beards and eyeglasses and pocket knives. Those are all
middle-agedness,
those are all
right?
good
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, we'll go off on a tangent. We'll start talking tin seafood, Larry, and then it's over with. We'll start talking sardines and trout and all.
You
that
had
stuff,
me
so.
at 10.
See, there we go, man. It's on. But I tell you what, guys, let's get into the show and let's talk some beer here. So I'm going to let me get down, cue us up, and I'm going to get us rocking and rolling here. Cheers, everyone, and welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We always love having you here with us. We've got some beers in our glass. We've got a great guest this week. Larry Horwitz with Crooked Hammock is here to talk beer with us. We're going to have a good time. I am Tim Dennis, and Brian Hewitt. How the heck are you doing?
I'm doing well, and like you said, Larry Horwitz, the director of brewing for Crooked Hammock, I believe. Is that your official title, sir?
That is my official title. I'm the beer guy, right?
All right. So
in
we're
the
going to talk.
hospitality company.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm the beer guy at the hospitality company, right?
There you go. Yeah. So
There
we're
you
going to
go.
talk
Good
about
stuff.
lagers, and we're going to talk about how many beers you should drink in a week, and we're going to talk about what's happening at Crooked Hammock. So also we have Mike Nate with us. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. Happy to be here. Ready to talk about some hammocks and beer.
My
All right.
gosh, he sounds like he's being forced to be here. Nate's been under the weather. So
Yeah, he's a little.
Yeah.
he's sipping tea. It's like, how are you doing? I am happy to be here. I'm thrilled. I've never been more happy in my life.
He's
Yeah.
exhausted after
Welcome. Woohoo. So,
Well, also, what day of the week is it? Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday?
Something
I
like
don't know.
that.
somewhere in there. It's hump day. We made
middle-
it.
middle of the
We
week.
made it. Yes.
Exactly.
Larry, I got a question for you. How many beers do you think you should drink in a week?
This is a very interesting question. Do you mean
Yeah.
how many do I tell my doctor and my insurance company about, or how
Yeah.
many do I consume?
Let's go. You know what? Let's go with what you tell folks. Well, like if you think, hey, I'm drinking a reasonable amount of beer in a week, how many would that be for you?
For me, I'd say it's about somewhere between 1 and 3 beers a day, right?
Okay.
So
okay.
in the course of my work life, I consume about 8 ounces for taste panel and regular work-related stuff just in the course of my job. And I usually have a beer or 2 when I get home, occasionally 3, not often. And then, this weekend is Labor Day weekend. My neighborhood's having a block party, and I don't have to
Right.
drive anywhere. And I've been pretty responsible this week. So I might have more than 3, but less than too many.
Okay, that more than 3, less than too many. That makes sense. Some news came out this week, and I've got opinions on the news article, not just the topic, but the news article itself. But they're calling it Biden's alcohol czar. This is Dr. George Koob, and he made a comment recently about alcohol consumption guidelines. There was a comment that someone asked him, about changing the guidelines, and he replied with something to the effect of, well, they're not going to go up. If anything, we would move closer to where Canada is. And those new guidelines, which what the article is latched onto, is 2 drinks per week maximum consumption is what the I guess the Canadian guidelines are. What was hinted that we could change to. Now, at a White House press conference, they were asked about it. It was pretty much dismissed. I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to address that. Where is this coming from? That kind of thing. And she finally said, we'll leave it up to the experts to decide. Now, in reading this article, to me, it sounded like, Brian, you and I chatted about this a little bit. It sounded like it was kind of an off-the-cuff comment where maybe he was asked about the guidelines, and he said, oh, well, they're not going to go up. If anything, we'd go towards Canada. But what circulated was Biden's alcohols may cut us down to 2 drinks a week. So,
I have opinions and I have
yes,
facts.
tell me.
So let's start with a fact. there is a decent amount of research that the federal government has done around especially for men, the heart protective nature of responsible consumption of ethanol of any kind as part of your diet, right? And this is proven. And even in the last administration, the administration before it, the Surgeons General didn't follow their own research. They chose a lower number, right? I have some speculation about this. First of all, I don't like that. I think it's pretty terrible. It feels on the surface, it feels dishonest to me, because let's at least have a conversation about it, right? There's two things to consider here. One of them is ethanol and beer or other adult beverages as part of a responsible adult lifestyle, right? I think if I drink 3 beers over the course of 12 hours, I know what my blood alcohol content is going to be like. I know where those calories fit into my diet. I'm festively plump, but I try to be responsible about being active.
You know where you are. You're maintaining the sexy, right?
Yeah. You got it.
Exactly.
And my doctor's like, well, I got good news. You're not dying soon. And maybe you move more, eat less, right? But not like, oh my God, we got to get you into surgery somewhere. Now, the same research says that for women, it's a little bit different. There's some elevated risks of breast cancer at over a certain amount. And by the way, the returns diminish very quickly once you get past 4 or 5 drinks, right? It can be damaging.
Sure.
And I think we're all aware of that, right?
Sure.
What I get frustrated about is the fear mongering around having a beer or 2 a day, right? Which for millennia, not even centuries, human beings have done to great effect. And there's a lot of great research around this. I speculate that the regulatory agencies in this case and doctors in particular, because I talk to doctors, you get to a certain age, you can talk to a lot of doctors.
You do, yeah.
Whether you want to or not. And they all look at me and say, well, I know what the research says, but I feel like, and this is where I think we get into the slippery slope, I feel like we should be drinking less. And I'm saying, well, you got a mouse in your pocket over there? Right? Yeah.
With a science degree?
Exactly, with a PhD in whatever we need a PhD in here, right? And so that whole thing worries me. I think that I didn't see the report, I didn't see the gossip, but I speculate that somebody in that organization was like, cut it out, right? Like, we can publish healthy guidelines around food, but also, and this is just America, right? Like, we all know about the food pyramid, and why is there a whole bunch of grain on the food pyramids? Because there's a great big lobby in America that grows grass-based calories, and it makes a lot of sense. I think that we're all aware that the recommendations that come out of the federal government are mostly, this has been my experience, are mostly pretty well researched and as responsible as a political organization can be about that stuff, right? Because let's be clear, that's a political organization, right? Even if they don't want to be, they've got political pressure. They're political appointees, and they're accountable to the general public, right? But the way we talk about food policy in America, I think all of us have bumped into parts of it where we're like, that's really strange, right? I'm supposed to have 5 servings of a grain-based product a day, but one of them can't be beer.
Right.
That's a good
What's
point.
up, man? Here we go. And we know, I mean, we've all heard about like the monks surviving on beer, the beer fast. It was a staple part of diets for a long time. We have some opinion on this. So Billy says, like if you're counting calories, Billy's very health conscious. And so beer calories don't count. That's it. They just don't count. So if you're tracking, doing all that stuff, a MyFitnessPal, a chronometer, whatever you use, beer doesn't count there. So that's good. And then we disappointed. Sorry about this. They said when they heard it first, they got excited because I thought the Canadians drank more than we do. I would think that too.
Do.
See, they're just saying forget those guidelines.
They're just told not to, but they still do. Yeah.
I wish a lot of this stuff was, give me real advice. Don't base it on fear mongering or whatever. I mean, if it's legitimate. But the thing is when you know certain things are BS, then even if they are telling you something that's true, you're like, well, all right, I know they BS on everything else, so here's where we are. And
it's tough, right? To
exactly.
Take this stuff seriously. I try to take my grandparents' advice, right? All things in moderation, including moderation.
Include moderation. That's it.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where Brian, more so than I, but the cigar industry, I used to be a big cigar smoker. Brian, probably, I don't think as big as he used to be, but a lot of the patriarchs of these cigar families, they're living into their 90s. and they're smoking,
Yep.
6 cigars a day. They're drinking rum, they're doing this and that. And that's I will say this, unless I've missed it, I have never heard a story about a cigar person, like getting cancer in that. And I'm not going to advocate, hey, go out and smoke or anything. I'm just saying that, those guys live a long time. That's all I'm saying on that. So,
Well, the
Yeah,
lifestyle's a little more laid back than most of us, right?
that's right. They're pretty chill. Maybe that's it. It's about the stress. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it. Drink rum, smoke cigars, and chill out. That seems to be the
That's
Now-
lifestyle.
I will
Sugar.
say one of the really, really old Cuban cigar guys did the story. He did in fact have some form of cancer. I don't know which one it was, but he was also late 80s, I think. He
Yeah.
was, So it was, again, he spent all of his time on the farm. He's just burnt, all kinds of sun and all kinds of whatever, drinking rum, smoking cigars, and well into his 80s. I'm like, I don't know if it's genetics. I don't know if it's being relaxed. I don't know if there's a therapeutic effect of relaxing with cigar. I have no idea. Or therapeutic effect of rum. I don't know. This could be any
Again,
of those.
rum,
Yeah.
moderate consumption of ethanol in any form
Yeah.
is heart protective, especially for men. Right?
See?
It's
Good
if you're
stuff.
by the way,
Happy
if you're looking for some great counter research or counterpoint, there's a guy named Dr. Charlie Bamforth, who
Oh, yeah.
for years worked for the University of California system, who's written a whole series of books about all kinds of stuff. I mean, Charlie's he's an academic, right? And for many years he was the Anheuser-Busch sponsored academic, which I appreciate because good for him for taking the check. But he wrote a book famously where were talking. Everybody got all wound up about glycemic index a while back, right?
Right.
And he's
right.
like, so the test for glycemic index is basically you go through some large period of fasting and then you consume an enormous amount of whatever the item is in question, then they check your blood sugar, right? And he's like, so in order to do this test, you would have had to consume like 6 beers in 45 minutes. He's like, so I don't believe that any ethical committee at a university would authorize this test. So how is it that nutritionists are talking about the glycemic index of beer? Are they pencil whipping that? Anyway, we don't have to go too much further down that rabbit hole. Charlie Bamforth, check out his stuff. He spends a lot of time talking about the important nutritional value of beer and its inclusion in a healthy, active lifestyle as a responsible thing for humans to do. I think we all know that in America that we went through this horrible time called Prohibition, and that there is a lot of hanger-on around, a lot of
Sure.
emotions around ethanol, right? This is one of the things I dig so much about Western Europe. They just take a slightly more laid-back approach to the whole idea, right? They're really hardcore about drinking and driving and about behaving appropriately in public. But, they begin teaching their children at an early age that responsible consumption of moderate amounts of alcohol will add value to all your interactions and it tastes good. Right?
Yeah, I know. Like the Germans, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they have different phrases for. Like there was one like having a beer before church on Sunday. There's like a phrase for that or something. They've got all these great things for drinking and like you said, have a drink in moderation. There, take it easy, and enjoy life.
Now, I will say one thing that we didn't mention. You said there was a difference between men and women in this case, and I think the 2 per week was for men, and I think it was one per week for women. And
One.
the daily, yes, just one. I think, yeah, just one.
Just kill me now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
I
One
mean,
beer. That's it.
well,
Stop.
the current I think the current U.S. guidance, and it's not officially enforced by anybody, but I think it's used for setting insurance policies and rates and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think the official version of it now is it 2 to 3 drinks per day per men and 1 to 2 for women. So there's like a
something
scaling
there.
back because of additional risk, I think, for various diseases and such. So there is an official difference in the recommendations.
Yeah.
And we all know that anytime you create a heuristic, right, a thumb rule like that you're going to mess it up, right? Because they just took the entire population, 300 million people in America, and said half of you can drink 3 beers a day and half of you can drink 1 beer a day without any other look, right?
That's a fair
'Cause, I mean,
point.
the reality of this is every human being in America is slightly different. A lot of us are similar, but I struggle with gout. It's a genetic inherited problem, and it basically amounts to pain in my joints caused by the consumption of certain proteins. A lot of people are super sensitive to beer and can't drink beer if they have gout. My doctor's like, I don't know how you can drink beer. I'm like, I don't know. My particular makeup allows me to consume 2 or 3 beers a day. It doesn't bother me. If I eat shellfish and red meat nonstop for a week, I'm gonna be hobbling around like a proper old guy, right? But if I eat vegetables and drink beer, by the way, I will argue that beer is basically a salad, right? It's made out of vegetables.
It is. That's it.
I
All the
agree.
good
I agree with
ingredients
you.
there. Yeah.
It's like a quinoa bowl.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
For years, the red wine industry talked about resveratrol, right? And all of the antioxidant properties that red wine has. And we even had 60 Minutes famously running that show about the French paradox, right? I think we're all, except maybe for Nate, we're all old enough to remember this paradigm. We're like, why do the French live so long? And the real answer isn't red wine. It's a whole series of things, including genetics, right? But Dr. Bamforth, who I referenced earlier, did a study, and he's like, there's more antioxidant capacity and resveratrol in beer than there is in red wine. So either we're forgetting to talk about something really important in beer, or it's not those things in wine that make the French live forever. And it turns out
I like old Dr. Bamforth's science there. I'm going to go with
I like
yours.
him a lot.
That's what I'm going to take, man. Absolutely.
You would enjoy his case. He's also funny.
Yeah, that's what I have been health conscious lately. I'm losing some weight. I had some medical issues over the last year, so I'm watching, my omega-3s and my sodium content and all of this. So looking around at all of that, avoid the empty carbs and that. So
I love chips though.
I know. I love like pasta, rice, bread. I could probably survive if there was a diet that was the reverse of like the Atkins diet. It's like, look, just eat spaghetti all day. I'm like, I'm on. I got this. I can do this. So.
I think you can get away with that, especially if you had a really nice marinara, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
Right?
Count me in, man.
I think that's vegetarianism. I think you could do that.
See.
I'm with you on that, except as long as I can have a little bit of pork sausage in my marinara.
It's a little bit there. Yeah.
Just a little. I like vegetarian-ish.
It's vegan pork sausage. You can, but asterisk vegan pork sausage.
Soy protein, which I will eat, and a whole bunch of sage. Right?
Yeah.
What can you do?
Stephen, Pete, cheers to you, sir. Always good to see you here. Cheers to Kettle Rock Brewing. And Stephen also commented he likes my glasses. For those that are not on the live stream, this is my first week I was going blind. I couldn't read my computer monitor or anything, so I now have glasses on, and I'm rocking them. I'm rocking the glasses, that's for sure. So
nicely done, sir. Welcome to the club.
Thank you. Yeah, right.
You want to talk about lager beer?
We do want to talk about. Yeah. We want to talk about all kinds of stuff here. So we've got Brian. Before we move on to that, though, you've got a little bit of news about the states that produce the most craft beer. So
yeah,
Larry, do you know these facts, or do you have guesses as to who's cranking it out there?
I'm sure I can access that information in about 2 minutes. But my guess, my guess is that we start with the largest state in America, which is California.
Okay.
And then right behind that is either Oregon, Washington, or Colorado, or all 3 of those.
I tell you,
Pennsylvania's up there, and it also depends whose definition of craft we're using. If we use the Brewers Association definition of craft, or if we're using the IRI's definition of craft.
You know what? I don't know IRI's definition. I know that they get a little tricky, like where they slide like FMBs and stuff like that. When they're doing counts. So
IRI says if a consumer says it's craft, it's craft.
Okay, I'm kind of good with that. Good with that.
Includes crafty stuff like Blue Moon that hasn't been crafted in a very, very long time. So
yeah, you got
it.
And the Brewers Association says there are rules around who is and who isn't an American craft brewer. You got to be less than 25% owned by a multinational conglomerate, and you got to be of a certain size. You get the idea, right?
Yeah. So Brian, number 5, who's taking up our number 5 spot there?
I do have some surprises from Larry, but number 5 is Florida, and they make, I'm going to go 1.3 million barrels annually is what they're producing. Number 4.
Tiny little brewery there called Yingling.
They do have
they do have a Yingling spot down there, don't they?
That's right. Yeah, that'll become even more relevant soon, Larry. So.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Number 4 is Texas with 1.3 million barrels, but a little bit more than the other 1.3 million barrels. So like an additional, was it 6,000 barrels a year annually? So that's Texas, number 4. Number 3 is New York with 1.368 whatever million barrels annually. Number 2 is not from the Northwest. It's Pennsylvania with 3.12 such and such million barrels annually. And my wondering is that basically all Yuengling? I mean, I know there's a lot more in Pennsylvania.
There's 2 enormous craft breweries in there. There's Yuengling, and not even an hour and a half away, there's a Boston beer production facility in Vogelsburg.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
They make a tiny bit of beer there.
Did you happen to look up what Yuengling's annual production is, Brian, to see what chunk of that they take?
I did not.
I mean, that's a huge jump. We're going like 5, 4, and 3 are 1.3, 1.3, 1.37, and then we go more than double there going to
almost 2 million jump.
Yeah,
like between 2
stuff.
and 3. And I should have looked into that. I don't have those numbers.
Okay,
but number 1, I think everybody guessed this. It's California with 3.5. Let's call it 3.6 million barrels annually. So you'll be interested to know that I looked in the top 20 that followed it, and I don't have Oregon in there. I should have. I think it's ahead of Georgia where we're at, but Georgia's 13th place with 558,000 barrels annually. Washington is just behind Georgia. I don't have the number, but they were in spot number 14, which surprised me. Colorado is number 10 with 800,000 plus barrels annually. And North Carolina, which gets put in there as one of the best beer states in the country, is really up there in the top 10 at number 8 with almost 900,000 barrels annually. So I didn't expect Pennsylvania to come in number 2, and I really did expect a greater showing from Oregon and Washington than I saw. It was a bit of a surprise to me. So
yeah, that is. I'd always seen Ohio has been up there in years past. I remember seeing them a lot too. So
Ohio
interesting.
has a couple of very large breweries, right? So you've got the Rhinegeist guys in Cincinnati, you've got Mad Tree, and then you've got of course Great Lakes in Cleveland, and a fistful of really good sized regional breweries scattered across that.
It'll add up.
I was born and raised in Ohio. I spent a lot of time there.
Okay.
Owned a brewery there for a while.
Okay. It's funny when you think about it, like there's such a big jump from your local brewery that's doing 500 barrels a year, and then you get a little bit bigger, it's just really exponential, as they grow some there. So
I pulled up the full thing. Ohio's number 6, so they just barely missed being
just right
the top
there.
5.
Yeah, gotcha.
Almost 1.28 million barrels annually. And Oregon was number 9, which they're actually higher up than I thought. So
making that top 10 there.
They're in the fight, though, right?
Still in the fight. Sure enough, guys. Before we move on, I want to tell you about our beers of the week. We want to thank our friends at the Nest for sponsoring this segment. Craft Beer Barbecue in downtown Kennesaw, Georgia. Go out there. They posted a picture of their nachos lately, Brian. We haven't had those nachos in forever, man. I think the nachos are part of the Mediterranean diet, which is so trendy right now.
Yeah.
So getting all that in there. So, we need to go get us some more of those here real soon. But check them out. Our friends at the Nest. Tell them the beer guy sent you. Probably won't get you anything, but they'll be like, okay, yeah, thanks. I'm glad they sent you here. We appreciate that. And,
they're going to put you by the kitchen?
That's it. They'll set you over there. Oh, did they? You won't get thrown out. We can promise you that much.
See if we can get some kippers put on those nachos.
That's it. Kipper nachos. That's sardines, the Dean nachos there. So,
Mediterranean all the way.
Mediterranean. Good stuff.
That's healthy.
That's it. It's healthy, man. Our beers of the weeks. Brian pre-gamed with a little Victory Prima Pils there. He's also got an Omegang Nomegang, which is a Belgian-style blonde ale. And, of course, we've got a little Crooked Hammock Wide-Eyed Wit that we'll get into there. Nate's sipping hot tea this week. Nate's under the weather, so he's sipping some tea, trying to feel better. Nate, feel better. We know tea will cure what ails you there. And it's good if you know you shouldn't be drinking beer that you take a break and you have some tea. That's cool. We're cool with that as well.
Thanks, guys.
So, and also one more drink, other half triple Mylar Daydream, which is like a double oat imperial double IPA or something like that. It's just pure madness in a glass here. But I do dig this stuff from other half. So
They have certainly gotten their hype machine working, haven't they?
Yes, they have. Sure enough, man. I lived just outside. I lived in the Finger Lakes region for a while in Auburn, New York. Just outside of Syracuse there. And this was in my early teens, my troublemaking teen years. And my first beer, I've told the story a few times, on a fishing boat, Chesapeake Bay, dad and uncle, 8-ounce can of Bud Heavy. That was my first. But running around with buddies, I recall stealing Ginny Cream out of my buddy's dad's fridge. So there's a special spot there. And a few years ago, Other Half did a collaboration with Genesee. They did Ginny Dream Ale. And so I had to trade around to get a can of that. So
that was really good too.
I thought it was the greatest thing, man. I thought it was the greatest thing.
Little High Falls magic, right?
Yeah, man. It was good stuff. It was good stuff. Well, Larry, we've got a ton to talk about. I'm going to start with the easy, hopefully, question. Crooked Hammock Brewery, where you are right now. Tell us about Crooked Hammock.
So Crooked Hammock is a pretty awesome concept. We're a division of a group called Levita Hospitality that started in Lower Delaware, so at the beach, basically. Our founder is a gentleman named Rich Garahan, and Rich used to be in the banking business. He went the high power path that so many of us have in our career. And one day he said, "You know what? My life's living me and not the other way around." While he was sitting in a broken, crooked hammock in his backyard, he said, "I think I'm going to move to the beach and open a brew pub." And he did that. And now 8 years later, we have 3 locations, one in Lewis, Delaware, which is our original, right by the beach. We have a second one in northern Delaware in a town called Middletown. Our third location is in South Carolina in North Myrtle Beach in Barefoot Landing. And the whole idea is basically we are a backyard barbecue that you can bring your family to. We have enormous outside spaces that are pretty safe and well enclosed, so you can bring your kids and cut them loose and get a beer. The idea came from a couple of different places, but the challenge in Lower Delaware, especially at the Atlantic beaches, is that, very few places take reservations because it's difficult to anticipate what your business is going to be like. So in the summer, it's not unusual to wait an hour or 2 for a table for dinner.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's difficult. But if you've got a spot with, 10,000 or 20,000 square feet of AstroTurf outside where you can have a beer and relax with your family, it makes it a little bit easier, right? And that turned into a reason to come and not just something to do while you were waiting to sit down and eat. And we've gotten pretty good at finding ways to get food and booze into our backyard, right? So we can serve beer, wine, and spirits, and of course, food outside. And we do a lot of that. And these guys are, the tagline for the brand is just beer for a good time. And I really like that. Our whole vibe is a little left of the hospitality center. We really focus on our people and our guests having a good time. And I'm fortunate because they let me pretty much make whatever I want in the beer portfolio world. They kind of wandered around a little bit before they decided on a direction. And I'm happy to say they chose me to head up that direction. We've made a lot of brands over the last 8 years, but they said, listen, we want to figure out how to stay relevant and really keep the quality of our products super high because, as we all know, there's 9,000 breweries in the market right now, right?
Yeah.
And, I talk to a lot of people in our industry. I've spent a lot of time in beer, over 30 years at this point. And I said to a friend of mine recently, I'm like, I remember when Kim Jordan got on stage at a craft brewers convention, it must have been 20 years ago at this point, and said, can we dream of a time when the group of people who manufacture craft beer have 10% of the market? And people thought she was crazy, right? They were like, oh man, we're fighting for 2%, 3%, right? And now we're at 10%, which is amazing. A little more depending on who you ask and how you measure it. But the challenge is, for some reason, and I haven't figured this out yet. And if I had it, I'd probably be a very rich man. I haven't figured out exactly what happened. I think there's some smart people who have good ideas about it. But suddenly, suddenly we seem to be competing with each other for beer dollars, which I haven't figured out. I'm a little concerned about that. I think the pandemic really turned the market on its head. And of course, with the consolidation of the middle tier, distribution really getting less and less. Like I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I think there are roughly 20% of the distributors that there were 10 years ago. Don't quote me on that number.
Okay.
It's a placeholder, but it's huge. And there are a lot of states where that doesn't matter. Pennsylvania, Ohio famously have independent self-distribution for small brewers. But I think we all know that the middle tier tends to lock up grocery stores and cause trouble for some smaller producers, not necessarily on purpose, although sometimes on purpose. And of course, people really change the way they consume because of the pandemic. I mean, how many nights a week did we all go out before the pandemic? I think we were out 5 nights a week.
Only 2 nights a week per government guidelines, Larry.
That's right.
That was it. Yeah.
I didn't say how much beer we were
That's
drinking.
it. Yeah.
A little more than a little less than too much.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And I mean, I know at my house, we're down to maybe 1 or 2 nights a week when we go out, and some of it's just about we all got busy again, right? Like all of a sudden we got to go back to work. And when I mean go back, I don't mean that we weren't working during the pandemic. I mean, I have to physically commute to a place of business 3 to 5 times a week, and all of a sudden I got 10 hours of my week that just went away.
Yes.
And I'm very happy to have the opportunity to be involved in that work, but it changed the way we work and live, right? And it's going to be an interesting couple of years, I think, as we try to figure out how this happened, right? How do we get where we are, and what are we going to do about it? There's a whole demographic right now, people who are sober curious, and there's always the nobody wants to do what their parents did problem. And again, somehow I got old, and I'm old enough to have children in my life who are in their early 20s, and these guys drink beer with me, which is great. I'm excited about that, but they don't drink the way we did when we were in our 20s. In some ways, I'm happy about that. They're responsible young men compared to my formative years. But it's definitely different. And of course, there's the legalization. We got to talk about it everywhere. I am not personally morally opposed, but it definitely is giving altered state opportunities to consuming public people in America. That's different than beer. I still like to drink beer. That's my beverage of choice, and partly because I like the way it tastes. Also because for me, it's a little more predictive, right? Like I know what another beer is going to do to my body pretty well. That other substance is out there, and these days it glows in the dark and comes with all kinds of warnings attached to it, and turbo pull starts, right?
Well, I actually heard something, Larry, where they said the legalization is making it more dangerous because like things are stronger, and I guess you have the THC and the CBD, and the ratios there in balance are what keeps it from being too much. They're lowering the CBD, up in the THC, and it's just waylaying people out there. So
yeah, what happened to when we were kids, and the guy down the street had something that looked like a plant.
Yeah.
Now you go to
rotweed there, right?
Yeah, now you go to a fancy store and they sell you something that glows in the dark.
Highly refined, yeah, and they've got different strains they're perfecting that you have to figure out. And I've from talking to people that are into it. I'm not myself, but body highs and head highs and how strong it is and the actual effects vary considerably from strain to strain, but for the most part, from one beer style to the other, you look at the percent of ABV on there, and you have a rough idea of what it's going to do to you.
You know what's coming.
Now, if it's got lactose in it, for me, it may do some additional things that I don't like, but I actually can predict that pretty well too. But I do have a thought as to part of the reason why we're at where we're struggling to get the dollars, like the breweries are competing so much. You do have people getting back to real life from the pandemic, people just getting hammered and just going crazy in the pandemic, coming back and saying, whoa, that was super unhealthy for me, and now I'm sober curious. So you've got the pendulum swinging the other way. We've also got the situation where it didn't used to be so much back in the day, but it seems like everything's a 4-pack that's $20 to $24. And when things get more expensive, especially when the rates people are getting paid are not going up commensurate to that, suddenly they've got less money to spend. And you've also got these people having kids around this time, whereas they were freewheeling adults before. They didn't care about spending $20 for a 4-pack of hazy IPAs. Now they got to buy diapers, so they're a little less. So you've got all these factors coming together, forming ahead right now. And I don't think that it's too much in the way of having breweries. I think it's all of these other financial factors that are hitting and psychological factors that are hitting all at once. And I think we will get it figured out, but there may be shrinkage as a result.
Yeah, I
What do you
can't be
think?
paying $20 a gallon for both gas and beer.
Yeah.
We just can't be doing that, man. Can't be doing
Yes.
that. And
That's
in
rough.
all honesty, talking about that, those are great factors, Brian. Like we hear it all the time. My day job, Larry, I'm a recruiter, technical recruiter, and so
Nice.
I see the front line of what companies are paying, what people want to make, what rents are, and everything. These things, and they're not lining up. Things are not moving at the same pace there. And then you have that. The thing is habits are just changing, and I could go off on a huge tangent here, but you're talking about like the sober curious and that, and I still see a lot of craft beer folks that poo-poo the NA segment. And look, it may not be half of the craft segment or anything, but I think where it was, say, even 5 years ago, it's got a respectable market share for what it is. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. People want more choices along those lines. The quality of the non-alcoholic offerings are better. So, we can get out there. We've got at least 2 bars here in Atlanta that are non-alcoholic cocktail bars. We've even got a non-alcoholic bottle shop here now, so some of it may be a trend. It may pass, but there's still going to be people who want that.
It's an interesting phenomenon, right? And everything is on a pendulum swing, right? I mean, we see in our data that what's going on with purchasing habits. People are still coming out. We're excited about that. We get to entertain them. We get to show them what we do. But everybody's family's been squeezed a little bit, even people with responsible incomes. And it's the discretionary extras that seem to be dropping, right? So we're less likely to pregame at a bar and then go to another bar. We're less likely to order appetizers and desserts. And for us, we're struggling to introduce people to our products for take home, right? And people are like, well, maybe next time. And I'm optimistic that when the economy starts to get doing what we think it ought to be doing again, that some of that will settle back. But I mean, we've been looking at year over year, 8% inflation now, depending on whose measurement you ask, for almost 3 years. And, I can tell you from personal experience that we can't raise our beer prices that high, right? Like we're up, and we went up about, I don't have a problem telling everybody, about 3.5% this year on our beer price, but the cost of my raw goods went up 7 or 8%.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a thing, right? But eventually that's going to take people who are on the bubble, who are running small breweries that, especially if they're really not super focused on it and are able to do cost control and innovation to keep their stuff moving forward, are going to get bumped. And I will say this, I am excited that there are 9,000 breweries in America. I mean,
That's
I'm
awesome.
old. Yeah. I'm old enough to remember when there were 62. And when I started making beer commercially for a living, I think there were 400, and everybody was like, Lord,
these breweries, right?
Yeah, 1996. It's over.
Yeah.
We're saturated, right? There's
I remember the late 90s, early 2000s. We still talk about like what we call the 90s brew pub taste. There's you'd have a wit and a pale ale, and there'd probably be a porter on there. I first moved to Atlanta.
Wheat beer.
Yeah, you'd have, that's just madness, man. A raspberry wheat, that's crazy. Yeah. But, it's Brian and I call this, talking about all these costs, we call it the chicken wing index, because we noticed, we got to a point where, I mean, seriously, we're looking at chicken wings are $2 a pop, a lot of
$2 a wing,
and I'm old enough to remember like 25-cent wing night, 25-cent oyster night, different places in that.
I went to Ohio State. I lived at 65 East Woodruff. One about 4 doors down from the original Buffalo Wild Wings location, which had they'll hate to hear this, but which had 30 or 40 beers on tap at a time, and that was insanity. And of course, they would serve underage college kids.
Of course, it's a place to be.
They don't do that anymore.
Sure,
we know those places, or I knew those places.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that 30 plus years ago, right? And I remember 25-cent wing night wasn't one night; it was Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, if you can find a wing for $1, you're like, people are standing in line for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Larry,
seriously.
there is a place that Brian and I have discovered. It's a country buffet restaurant, and on Saturdays they put wings, buffalo wings, on the buffet. Are they the best wings in the world, Larry? No. Are they okay? Yes. Are they all you can eat for $11? Also, yes,
Oh, yes.
Larry. So
Wi-
yeah,
Wings and pizza, even when they're
that's
bad,
it, man.
they're
It's
still
all
pretty
right.
good.
It's all right.
And these
It's
are
all right.
better than just all right. They're
are
on
better
the
than all
on the
right. Yeah, they're
good
pretty-
side of
they're
all right,
good
not
enough.
just like
Yeah.
barely passable. Like these are pretty good. Like they're not the
take
best I've ever had, but they're for
Can
We
you
need
get
to
a
for
talk
beer
my
to him
there?
favorite
about
price.
getting some beer in there, Brian.
Yeah, that's the question. Can you get a beer there?
No, get some good iced tea,
no.
some good Southern sweet tea,
You got to smuggle one
but
in.
no beer. That's it. We'll bring it in and
Like
get
I need
it in
to.
a
I got to go to
flask.
the men's room for about 4 minutes.
That's right. I saw something the other day. I forget the bit. Maybe it was Sweetwater even, but they made this thing. It was a video that went around a few days ago. They had a baby in a stroller, but the baby
Yes.
was a doll baby, and they put a cooler in there, and so they can smuggle beer around. And they pull the can out, and they've got a sleeve that makes it look like a Coke can. So they slide that sleeve over the can, and that's what we need, Brian. I have to take it in there.
You
They
read
still
my
sell
mind. I was about to talk about that same Coke sleeve. I do want
Yeah.
that because
Yeah.
you know what? Every place is open container friendly when you've got a Coke sleeve.
Yeah. Yeah.
I-
That would be
op-
good, man.
open
A Coke
container-
sleeve. That sounds bad.
Open container laws are blue laws that I've never really understood that much. I'm optimistic that they're starting to fall in lots of places where people are like, wait a minute, I can't stand in front of my house and drink a beer.
Yeah. Our
Yeah,
thing
and-
here is entertainment districts. So a lot of our downtown areas they'll draw a perimeter around an imaginary section they consider the entertainment district, and you can walk around there. Got to have your plastic cup now. We can't be having cans and bottles out there, but as long as you're open to putting it in a plastic cup, you can walk around a little bit there.
I will make that sacrifice, and I do consider
Yeah.
that to be a sacrifice, as long as I
Yeah.
can walk around with a beer.
Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. Brian, I think it is time that we thank our fantastic sponsors of the Beer Guys Radio Show. I knew I could do that.
All
I
of
knew
them,
I
yes.
could do it. All of them. Brian, I would love for you to tell me more. We just hung out with these guys last week in the Terrapin Brewery, Atlanta. We went down there for a beer festival, the Live at the Battery Beer Fest. We had a great time. We hung out with Spike, one of the co-founders of Terrapin. We talked about all kinds of interesting topics. But Brian, if people go there and it's not a festival, it's still going to be a good place. But tell us about Terrapin Brewery Atlanta.
Yeah, seriously, every time I go down to the Battery, Atlanta, I wonder, why don't I go down here more often? There's a ton of things to do. You can go see a concert. You can hang out in the cigar lounge they have there, drink some cocktails. You can go to Taps at Feast and sip sake and enjoy some interesting Asian food, like a whole food hall full of all kinds of different options. But I always visit when I'm down there, Terrapin Brewery, Atlanta. Of course, like you said, we were just there. We sampled a bunch of things. They've got some really exciting beers on their R&D program. They've got a little 5-barrel pilot system that they're brewing beers on right inside the stadium, and we get to try some fun things like some experimental lagers and that triple buzz we've mentioned a lot. That's a Belgian triple made with bees that were rescued from the baseball field. They were out there.
Y'all, just to let you know, no actual bees in the beer. It's just their honey. It's not made with the bees. So
That's disappointing. You know what?
Yeah,
They were.
sorry, Brian.
I did notice that the beer was not crunchy, so there was no bee
wasn't.
material in there that I
this
could
has got
tell.
a little sting to it.
But of course, if you go there, the beers are great. They have all kinds of fun ones on. They've got the ones you expect. They've got Hopsecutioner. They got Luau Crunkles. They've got just a ton of beers. They've got the experimental ones. But if you're hungry, they also have Fox Brothers there, and so you can be well served in the food department by Fox Brothers Barbecue. And I don't know if there's finer barbecue around, honestly, than Fox
Very
Brothers.
good. And
I
Brian,
did. Yes. Go
Sorry,
ahead, Tim.
sir. Well, I was just going to say, as you know, I am currently trying to lose some weight, be healthier in this. I actually had a mushroom sandwich there. All this delicious barbecue. I chose a portobello mushroom sandwich. And if you're the type that would eat something like a portobello mushroom sandwich, it was fantastic. I mean, nice and smoky, well seasoned, a little barbecue sauce on there, a little bit of slaw. I also had some chicken wings and mac and cheese along with
Sure.
it. But, but
You're
I had
not
a
a
mushroom sandwich. So it's there. It's there if you want it, y'all.
Or you can get the brisket sandwich like I did, and
you go.
the green bean, the pork with a green bean or two in it, which was delicious. Love that, and
Yep.
it's great. So, if you haven't been there, you owe it to yourself to drop by the Terrapin Brewery, Atlanta. I really encourage you to go.
It's a good time. And y'all, you know what? This is something folks may not know. We do not work with any sponsor that we don't fully support. You know, you won't hear us doing
Absolutely.
a commercial for those people that tell you how to shave your nether regions and that. You know, we're going to talk about businesses we support. Terrapin Brewery Atlanta, we love the folks there. The barbecue's great. They do some fun beers. We want you to check them out. The Nest that we talked about earlier, good friends of ours, good barbecue, great nachos, good times, a great beer list, and Truck and Tap. We have partnered with Truck and Tap since both Truck and Tap and Beer Guys Radio were born. We actually formed our partnership just as they'd opened and just as we kicked off the show. We've got to see them grow over the years from one location in Woodstock, Georgia, to locations in Duluth, Alpharetta, most recently in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And they also have the taps at Feast at the Battery. So when you're out there, you can get a 2-for-1 on Beer Guys Radio sponsors, y'all. You can go to the Terrapin Brewery Atlanta, stroll down a little bit, go to the taps at Feast. They have an Asian food court there with lots of great stuff, as well as plenty of drinks at the taps there, which is a Truck and Tap location. So go to Truck and Tap, go to Terrapin, go to the Nest, tell them the Beer Guys sent you. It's not going to get you a thing, but we just like you telling them that. So, you know, thank you all for sponsoring the Beer Guys Radio Show. We greatly appreciate it. There we go. Larry, we got to ask you a question. We heard that you have a nickname, the Light Lager Whisperer. Why do they call you the Light Lager Whisperer?
They don't. That's a total fabrication.
That's
from
a lie. These are lies. Lies.
PR
So,
team.
yeah.
I will say this. I love lager beer. I mean, I cut my teeth early in my career working for a craft brewer and a large multinational in turn. One of them we don't have to talk about, but the other one famously made, like Gordon Biersch, famously made lager beer in the early 90s at a time when nobody was doing that, right? I mean, that's crazy. We all remember the early 90s in the beer world, right? You were lucky if you went to a craft brewery and they had 4 beers. That was amazing. You know, we had 4 beers and a seasonal beer, so that was unheard of. And the seasonal beer was usually 90-day aged lager of some sort, right? You know, a guy who got me fired up about craft beer is a man named Alan Young, who actually worked for Gordon Biersch for a lot of years, and who recently retired and has a wonderful business card that says, if you have a question about beer, don't ask me.
Don't ask.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
He's like, after 40 years, I'm done.
I will not help you brew beer. They needs that T-shirt.
I will be serving. He basically gives my card out now, right? Which is fair because he answered a lot of questions for me over the last 35 years of my life, right? But the thing about that is passionate for me is that it's very difficult to do. And I'm excited about what's going on in craft beer right now because we seem to be coming full circle. And for the first time in the 35 years that I've been around craft beer, I'm seeing people really hone the craft of being able to produce great lager beer. Because I think for a long time, there were people snapping around the edges of it who were, I mean, you know what we're talking about, right? Where you step into a place and they're like, we have a Pilsner, it's an ale. And you're like,
yeah, it's like, no, it's not. No,
yeah,
no.
either you're misinformed or your brewer's misinformed, but I think I'll have the pale ale. Preferably if it's American, right? Not to be xenophobic about that, but I love West Coast hops, and I happen to like them in lager beer. So throughout my career, I have been fortunate to work for companies who spend a lot of time and money making world-class lager beer, and I bring that to Hammock. And you know, it's interesting. One of my first innovations was Hammock Light, and everybody was like, "So we don't understand that." Not everybody, but a few people were. And I'm like, listen, what's the number 1 selling beer style in North America? It's domestic premium, domestic light lager.
Sure.
And if you roll the two together, it represents roughly 90% of all the beer consumed in America. And if we're a brewery restaurant, we're a brew pub, we can be super proud of our double IPA or our New England IPA. We do some barrel aged wild and sour beers. We do a lot of milkshake smoothies, a lot of pastry sours and stouts. I'm like, but you know, we're at the beach, and a big chunk of the consuming public that comes to see us, they just want to taste really well-made beer-flavored beer. And it looks like the rest of the consuming craft industry is coming around on that. I know my brewery brethren have been doing this for years, right? Where they'll come by and be like, yo, you got any of that Helles hidden back there? Like it's on the double DL, right? And I'm like, yeah, I brought Helles, and I brought Vienna Lager too, you know, if you really want to get crazy.
Get the hard stuff.
Exactly.
Let's see. You got some of that Vienna lager? He was scratching.
Come on now. Hit him, brother. Hit him, brother.
Bring it.
Right? It's sip, sip, pass, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, that was something, Larry, we said many years ago. I've been calling for the lager movement for 6 years. I knew if I kept saying it long enough, it would happen. Well, that was because when I'm hanging out with brewers, when they're in the back, they're drinking the lagers, and they may even have, it may even be a course, in there
Yeah,
or whatever.
banquet
They're not
beer.
Yeah, so they're not drinking, or they weren't, they may, but when they hang out and drink, they're not chugging their 10% IP dippas and stuff. So
I have a lot of good friends in Pennsylvania. I worked in Pennsylvania for a long time who work at the various regional specialty breweries there. We talked about one of them earlier. And for years, the Yingling family has been kind enough to host a Master Brewers Association meeting almost every year, which I think is really wonderful. They brewers are congenial, we're cordial. We compete, but not all the time, and certainly not us with somebody like Dick Yingling and his daughters. And they would invite everybody in, and we'd get to hang out and do the thing that we do as a trade association, which is talk to each other about beer and drink beer. And, one of my good friends worked there for a long time. He'd be like, what we need Lord Chesterfield lager beer off the filler right before the pasteurizer. And
Yeah.
I'm like, is that possible?
little tear shed there.
A little
and
bit.
stuff. Yeah.
A little chetty for you.
Right.
And you're totally right. Like that everybody's passionate about that, and they make some great beer that has a lot of flavor in it. I mean, they famously introduced a large chunk of the consuming public who never would have drank Vienna Lager to a beer with a little bit of color and a little bit of flavor in it. I think they deserve an award for that for sure, and not just the millions of dollars in profit they generated.
Right. Yeah.
So it's been a really interesting swing. Now we've also gone the other direction, right? Where we've got this whole smoothie sour situation, and we make plenty of that stuff, and it's interesting, and it's not, in my opinion, beer flavored beer. I think it's really interesting beyond beer kind of product, and I'm fired up about the innovations we're doing around that stuff. But it makes my heart happy when somebody comes in off the street. They don't necessarily realize we're a brew pub, but they find themselves in our facilities because they're inviting and they're hospitable and they're full of fun stuff for families to do. We're also the kinds of places where you can show up with a group of 20 people and we can feed you. That's difficult in a touristy area, right? And the people will walk up to the bar and there's always that trepidation, right? Like where they're like, we're not really beer people, but we drink beer. I'm like, well, so you are beer people, right? I'm like, what do you normally drink? Like, well, I'm a Mick Ultra drinker, and I'm like, I appreciate that. I think that our business has a job to do. We need to make beers for the people walking through our door, right? We make a lot of beer for ourselves, and I'm excited about that, and I'm proud of that. And a large portion of our consuming public wants to drink our Sway New England IPA, wants to drink the Wide-Eyed Wit. But for the people who I see the relief and the surprise when they're drinking a 10 Plato, 10 BU filtered yellow 30-day aged, crisp, clean American light lager, American Pilsner. Right. And they're like, oh, yeah, you guys make beer here.
Yeah.
Indeed, we do. That's why we call it a brewery. Just
right.
saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's opening it up a little bit, right? We're getting a little bit more inclusive, and I think it's a logical pendulum swing. We talked about that earlier. Back from we're gonna fight the fight for metal and see how many BUs we can squeeze into every single beer we make, right? I do think that there were a lot of people who just shoved hops into their kettle until it broke, and weren't necessarily that thoughtful about how they were producing their product. And a lot of them got rich, and a lot of them got famous, and some of them aren't around anymore. And I don't bear them any ill will, but that, somebody comes at me with their lager beer and they say, listen, this was very difficult for me. I want you to taste it and give me some feedback. And it hits your lips and you're like, heck yeah, man. Way to be, right? Like, it is so difficult to thoughtfully choose those raw ingredients, which are going to be on full display, and to manage that fermentation and to wait. I mean, we've all got pressure from owners and shareholders who are like, but you got to make more money. We got to make more money. And to be able to have the stick-to-itiveness to say, no, we got to age this beer for 4 full weeks, right? And for us, sometimes longer than that. Yeah, for the larger lager beers, I like to give it a solid 2 months. And I feel really lucky both that I get to make beer like that for consumers who are into it, and that my employer says, we're going to trust you on this. Right?
Let you go for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And on the backside, we're brewing Russian Imperial Stout with marshmallow and we're doing Belgian triple, and I think that it's not a one-trick pony situation.
And all of those beers deserve love, Larry. Every single one of them. There was a conversation on Reddit that I saw earlier today. It's the question was, what is a style that you just can't understand why people like? And the first answer was barrel-aged anything. And I'm not even going to justify that one with any kind of response whatsoever. But the other one said anything light, and I'm like, man, I can really enjoy. And the good thing, Larry, is we're talking about alcohol consumption earlier about what's recommended. If we dove into that a little further, they also offer guidelines as to what they consider a beer, by alcohol. I think it's 5% is what the government looks at when they're saying that. So if you're drinking a 10% beer, you're down to one a week, according to the government. But if I go out on a Saturday with some buddies and I want to travel around and have some beers, or I want to sit somewhere and have 6 beers while I talk with friends for 5 hours, then those 3, 4, 4.5 percenters are perfect for that. And I think this person's comment are just like, well, they just taste like nothing. That doesn't have to be the case. There's beers out there that are very flavorful. The one that I always think of is Petite Prince from Jester King. That beer, I think, is 3.2, 3.5, somewhere in there. Yep. And there's a lot of character in that beer, especially for being a 3.2, 3.5% beer. Now, in my opinion, or I should say rather my experience, you get around that 3%, you're getting right at the point where you get more
below
water than
that.
Beer. And then you just not a lot you can do with it there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Without $1 million dealcoholizer.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
And
Brian, you had something you were going to throw in there, sir?
You know what? I lost what it was, but
it escaped.
There were a couple of things that came up when you were talking. One of them is you said you were really proud of the innovations you'd had with. I think you were talking about the fruited sours, but it may have been the pastry stouts. What are some of the innovations that you guys have been working on there in terms of those?
We're doing a bunch of stuff right now. So we have, for years, even before me, we brewed a whole line of beers we called Brand New Day that were basically fruited smoothie style sour beers, right? So kettle sours, in some case exogenous acid, but lots of real fresh fruit on top of oats and malted barley, and it's just it's been interesting to see the transition from, I don't know what that is, to it's 30% fruit. I think that it may be a little faddish, but I'm having fun with it. We do 2 or 3 beers that get a lot of critical acclaim, but that doesn't make me as happy as watching people order a drink them and be happy, right? We make a beer that's basically a pina colada. My friend Garrett Oliver from Brooklyn Brewing Company made a beer years ago that was basically a Manhattan, made out of barley and had those kinds of flavors in it. And so it's funny because people are like, we invented innovation.
Invented innovation.
There's plenty of breweries out there where everybody's fighting for a spot, right? Where I'm like, I appreciate what you're trying to do over there, and your marketing team's on their game, but you didn't invent innovation, right? There's a famous brewery near us who I won't mention. They're great guys, but people are like, we should do what they're doing. I'm like, they're doing what somebody else did, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, I don't know about that
brewery in Rehoboth Beach by any
might
chance?
be,
Is it? Okay, I just wondered.
They may have several locations.
But that's one, huh? Gotcha.
And the one in Rehoboth Beach is doing the things like the Vikings did and the Egyptians did.
Yeah, a little bit. Right?
I do think give a nod to the people that did stuff like that. That came out and made it a little weird, a little off-centered. Out there to play around with this stuff, and the taking a chance, and like you said, you may get a little grief for it from some, you may get a little critical acclaim, but people drinking it, we love them all, Larry. We're going to try them. There's going to be some that I'm going to try, and I'm like, I don't get this at all. I think we mentioned this on last week's show, but Modus Brewing did a collaboration with Hormel, and they did a chili cheese beer. And I'm like, I've got to get this.
I may have worked with Tabasco in the past on a disastrous project. I will say this. I was at a beer festival at the University of Pennsylvania 25 years ago, and I'm having dinner with Michael Jackson before he died, and Bill Kowaleski. The UPenn Beer Festival was a Michael Jackson Invitational. It was an awesome event. And after 3 sessions of a beer festival, this poor guy is drinking Russian Imperial Stout session after session and talking about it. Anyway, we all sit down to this huge beer dinner after 3 beer festival sessions. I was a much younger man, and somebody poured a peanut butter and jelly beer, and Michael Jackson said the funniest, most diplomatic thing that I have ever heard. He got up, as he does, or as he did, and did his thing. He's a great orator. And when he got to the peanut butter beer, which was made by a friend of mine, and which was objectively a little bit challenging, and he said, "Well, I want to thank the brewer of this product." And everybody in the room, because the room was mostly brewers, were like, "Pete, come on, man."
Yeah.
I can't tell whether he's trying to high five you or he's trying to shine you on. And he's like, no, I have to thank you. He's like, because now we all know that we should not do that. And then like 2 years later, Duclaw comes out with Sweet Baby Jesus, right? And just crushes it. It's the best beer in that category for a good long while. And I was like, well, I thought it was hilarious that he was like, thank you. And I think he meant it. I think he was authentic in that. And I think that matters, right? Authenticity here matters. Even the brewer who made that product ended up making it better. It's like, look, if you're doing it with a good heart and you're buying good ingredients and you have an honest effort put into it, I think even failures, I mean, we all learn more from our failures than we do from our successes, right? And who knows, somebody in that room dug that beer. I'm sure of it, right? I think we should not all be making the same beer. And we should not all be making beer for the masses, right? While we make some beer that appeals to a broad swath of the community, if we only did that, we would be irrelevant, right? So
I think if you drink, if you like peanut butter beers, power to you. Drink them, enjoy them. If you don't like peanut butter beers and you would never touch a beer like that, that's cool as well. My thing is you don't necessarily have to grief on other people because they don't like what you like or like something because you don't. The chili cheese beer, Larry, I'll tell you what, it was executed very well. I never want to drink it again, but it was executed well, so.
Thank you. We all know that we should not be making any more of these in the future.
Now, see, I feel a little bit hypocritical because after saying don't judge people what they like, I will judge you if you actually like that beer. There's some judgment to be thrown out there. So
look, we can appreciate the idea without maybe consuming.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Larry, we would love to talk some about your involvement with the Brewers Association and that. You've been involved with them for many, many, many years. And I believe that you are currently, if I have my information correct, the chair of the Draft Beer Quality Subcommittee for the BA right now. Is that right?
That is correct. And I sit on the technical committee as the chair of that subcommittee. It's the subcommittee of the technical committee.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'll give you one more thing. I served as a board member for that organization as the chair of the technical committee for 4 years, following Ken Grossman and John Mallett in that role. So I'm very fortunate to have been able to serve that organization. But Tim, you had a question, so please.
I was just going to ask. I'll be honest, I don't think a lot about draft beer outside of getting a beer in a glass and being, this is a nice draft beer. Are there any innovations or any problems with draft beer right now?
There are a lot of problems with draft beer all the time. One of the largest problems with draft beer in America right now is that, and I'm going to blame the pandemic for this a lot. The pandemic just destroyed on-prem draft beer, right?
Yes.
We took a hit, and I think that's disappointing because it's one of the best ways, in my opinion, to experience what the brewer intended. Right? Very few packages of beer are handled as carefully as a half barrel. Right? They're almost always kept cold throughout the entire chain. Distributors do not treat packaged product the same way, even if it's in our contract. We know they don't. It gets warm, it gets cold, it gets warm, it gets cold. Draft beer does a better job with that. But the challenge has almost always been around that the dispense of draft beer can be difficult for people who are uninformed or uneducated. And if you don't take care of your draft lines and you don't clean your faucets and you don't do it in a hygienic way on a regular basis, then you're going to potentially destroy that beautiful beer that got delivered to your drinking establishment. So, my group is really worried about that. And I'm happy to say that it's one of the few in the industry from a trade association that's totally cross-functional. We have big brewers in the group. The Draft Beer Quality Manual, which was put together by this group, I guess it's been almost 15 years at this point ago now, was a collaboration between almost all the large brewers in America and, of course, the trade association for small brewers, which is the Brewers Association. And, we're trying to preach the message of, number one, draft beer matters, especially for small brewers who can't afford packaging equipment, but want to get good quality, fresh craft draft in front of consumers. And it should and could matter for bars and restaurants if they're thoughtful about the products they put on tap. Of course, the challenge in America right now is that in most places, beer gets delivered by a beer distributor. And while I don't necessarily have a problem with that model, if those distributors continue to consolidate, what products are they going to focus on, right?
Yeah.
They're going to focus on the 80, the Pareto 20, the 20% of their portfolio that represents 80% of their brands.
And we see that now in certain areas with certain distribution.
Right. Like how, and I don't blame the route reps. Like, how does a route rep who's got a call on Terrapin talk to them about the 2,000 products they have in their book thoughtfully, right? I think there's room in the market for some small boutique distributors, and I'm optimistic that we could see some innovation in that space in the not so distant future. But currently, that's my role with the trade association. And I really enjoy all the work that I've put in there. And of course, the camaraderie with my other industry members is just amazing. Brian?
It sounds really relevant to a little bit of a debate I've seen on Twitter about draft, and it's non-alcoholic draft. And people have been arguing, should you or should you not put non-alcoholic beer on draft? And they're concerned about the safety of the product itself once it gets into the lines. Have you looked into that? Is that something that's come up at all, or
so this is
not?
This is timely and thoughtful, Brian. So I will tell you, if you look around the world, do you see in general in the market non-alcoholic beer on draft? And I'm talking anywhere in the world, right?
Really, no, but yeah.
The answer is no. There are some notable exceptions, and there are a couple of people trying to innovate in that space in America right now. But I think it's really important that we consider how food safe beer has been for almost 10,000 years. And I think we know why, right? It's low in pH and it's got ethanol in it and famously has hops, all of which are antimicrobial. And so this product is nutritious and it's very stable from a food safety standpoint, right? There's a whole government arm that's worried about making sure we're safe with food we consume that's purchased, especially out in public. The federal government has a role to play there, and I think it's really important. And they have been very kind to the beer industry because over the years, I think we have been, as a group, very responsible about this and very thoughtful and very careful. And we make a product that is objectively pretty food safe. The concern that my group has is that there is not a great body of peer-reviewed research out there right now around food safety of non-alcoholic beer, because non-alcoholic beer is not beer. I mean, let's be honest. It doesn't have ethanol in it. It looks like beer. It tastes like beer. I think there's a lot of reasons to have it in your book and to consume it. I drink it occasionally. It's an occasion-based product for me. There are times when I want the flavor of a beer, but I got to operate heavy equipment, right?
Right,
sure.
As part of my job, it's not time appropriate. So I think there's work to be done here. As a trade association, I believe we're gonna make some recommendations about best practice around this in the very near future. We are very concerned, as are most of the big brewers, and while we don't always take our cues from them when it comes to good peer-reviewed research and food safety, there are a few organizations on the planet that are tighter than large food manufacturing and beverage manufacturing companies. And we have been funding research for years to talk about how well draft lines get cleaned, right? Because I don't think the problem is necessarily with the keg of beer. I think the problem is going to be once the keg of beer gets to Bob's Country Bunker and Beer Barn, when was the last time they cleaned that tavern coupler, that draft line, and that faucet, right? And how fast is that non-alcoholic beer going to sell, right? We all famously know that pathogenic organisms have a difficult time reproducing in beer. That is really the barrier, one of the barriers that help us stay safe when drinking beer. Those things don't exist in non-alcoholic beer. So if you got a pasteurized bottle or a can, high five, right? We trust the stability of that product. If you have draft beer, we could even trust the quality of the draft beer in the package. I trust most of the brewers out there who are making non-alcoholic beer to consider my well-being and the livelihood that hopefully they want to continue, and they're going to pay attention to it. I'm really worried about the implication of uneducated consumers, and in this case, the consumers are businesses who maybe don't understand how to handle that product, right? There are a bunch of brewers in Europe who won't even talk about it. And there are plenty of regulatory agencies, not in America, who are like, well, pathogenic organisms can grow in this product. So what are you going to do to ensure the food safety of it, right? And I think I'm optimistic that people are going to innovate here. But what are the obvious paths to making it safe? Well, the most obvious path is to use food stabilizers, right? Sorbates, sulfites, preservatives.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I think that our industry is really, we worry
Resistant.
about that.
Yeah.
I think
averse to that, right?
we're like bakers, right? Especially small artisanal bakers. We craft our products, hopefully with high quality raw goods, and we're not trying to alter them other than turning them into beer, right? And we're not trying to make a beer last on a shelf for 2 or 3 or 5 years. I think we all want beer to be made and consumed fresh. And so I'm worried about that. The scuttlebutt will be if somebody gets hurt, right? And I don't even like to say that out loud because I think beer in general is a safe beverage for adults to consume in responsible amounts, and we're not going to have a problem there. So, my position as the chair, and this is just my opinion, this is not the opinion of the Brewers Association. The Brewers Association, I think, is going to publish some information about this and some recommendations in the not too distant future. But my concern for my brewery and the brands I represent is that I don't know that we can deliver that in a way that I can ensure the safety of my consuming public. Now, we do serve non-alcoholic beer. And as a matter of fact, I'm happy to say our friends at Athletic make phenomenal product. There is a real craft beer, really innovating in that space. I keep it at my house. I drink it. I like it. And I said, you know what? If we don't have the technology or the food safety chops to do this on draft, and that's mostly how we would serve these things because we're mostly brew pubs. We do a little bit of packaging, but it's for take home and a little bit of outside sales. But not, we're not in chain grocery at the moment. That we should lean on somebody who's figured this out, right? And they're dipping their toe into the draft beer water, and there's some very thoughtful, very conscious people over there, and I'm interested to see what they're going to do. But we're not buying their draft; we're buying the packaged product, right?
Yeah.
Because we know it's pasteurized. So, Brian, it's
Sure.
an interesting topic, and I think that there's work to be done. I think we all know that the consuming public wants products in these spaces, and I'm hoping that my brewery brethren are careful and thoughtful as they step into this arena, so that we can continue the almost uninterrupted growth of craft beer in America since 1989. It's good stuff if it can be handled correctly. Does that help you see where at least my thought is on that?
It does.
Oh,
I think
yes, for
that's-
sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. All that makes perfect sense. Very much, and that's kind of like you said. For me, it is it's a situational thing. It's an event based thing. Sometimes I'll be sitting around. I'll have a few beers. I maybe get a little more of a buzz than I want. I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling the want to drink here. I'm gonna pop me an Athletic in the mix there. Just slow it down a little bit. There may be a time when I've got to drive somewhere. I've got to do this or that. I'll have an Athletic, or you're out with friends, and So I think that there's some very very justifiable reasons for many people. Athletic Brewing, they are doing a lot of marketing now with athletes. Because there's a lot of good stuff in a beer for recovery, outside of the
Yes.
alcohol. Yep. So, and you know what? We just like those guys. We got to talking to them when they were pretty young, I think, because
Very
that's
early
about when
on,
Brian and
yes.
I started exploring some NA beers. And, it was really cool. Larry, you got someone here chiming in to see if, says you're good people, man. You're good people, John.
Hey, John.
John
Good to
chiming
see you,
in
bud.
there. So
Thanks
good stuff.
for the shout out. That's all.
Yeah. So, Larry, this is a very exciting weekend for us. Not only is it a holiday weekend and Labor Day weekend, but it is the first weekend of September. And for us, that means that we can break our self-imposed ban on drinking Oktoberfest beers. So, yes, we're very excited. We're looking forward to it because
Raise the roof.
it's our little thing to fight seasonal creep. We just refuse to drink it. When we were hanging with Spike last week, they had a brand new Fest beer or, their Oktoberfest on tap there. I didn't touch it. We went on and drank other things. Just, it's a pointless thing for me to stand against seasonal creep. And I guess we're going on about 5 years now, Brian. We've been pretty strong. But it's about to break, so we're going to drink all of them. But, Larry, what are your...
Did my people send you our Oktoberfest?
No,
No.
we didn't. Well, they didn't.
Well,
No.
Good for them, because we're serving ours in September. So
Okay, see, there you go. Good stuff,
Sep-
man.
We
Good
wouldn't have
stuff.
drank
September
it right now. Yeah.
September
Yes.
9. So,
But Larry, what's your favorite things about Oktoberfest, and what's Crooked Hammock gonna do for the
Well,
holiday?
first, I'm going to tell you that Vienna Lager is I have 2 desert island beer styles, right? If I can pick 2, I'm going to take Saison, and especially in the DuPont lane.
Sure. Yep.
Bright yellow, beautiful, bitter. But other than that, Amber Lager and specifically Vienna or Märzen, right? And so I have made some version of a beer like that since the early '90s. I love the Wiesen, and I love the actual fest, although it's pretty touristy these days. It's hard to have a bad time when you're there. I love the fall. My birthday's in September. It's usually during
Mine too.
Oktoberfest. Whoop,
There you go.
represent.
September birthdays. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're raising the roof one more time.
that's it.
Right. And there are 2 things that I love about this style. First of all, I think high dried malt, Munich Vienna malt, are just phenomenal. The flavors that you get from those grain products they make my heart happy. And I love a well aged, crisp, well attenuated, not necessarily dry, not necessarily bitter amber lager, because I can sit and I can drink 2 liters of it. I mean, and you give me a pork knuckle, which I shouldn't be
Little
eating.
Schweinhaxen.
Yes.
Schweinhaxen, baby.
Schweinhaxen.
Yes.
Or a roast chicken. I love an excuse to wear lederhosen. I've got the real deal. I got a closet full of goat skin behind me, and I am ready for the fest. So we're doing a 2-week activation. I'm so excited that our operations and marketing teams we're ready to support this. We completely redesigned the place, and we're going to run 3 beers in addition to our regular lineup that are I'll call them relatively traditional fest beers, but they've suddenly become innovative, which is kind of funny. Right. So next to all of our smoothie sour beers and our really hoppy New England stuff, we've got Keller Pilsner. So a version of our Czech Pils that's unfiltered, and I'm beer I would drink in the cellar at the end of a long day at work. Our brewer in Myrtle Beach put out a phenomenal Schwarz beer with an awesome name. It's called Sand in My Schwarz, which makes me giggle every time I say it. And then, of course, our version of Oktoberfest is called Crooktoberfest, because we're a little crooked about most stuff. And I mean that in a good way, not in a bad way. So we'll have can releases of Crooktoberfest, and the rest of the products will be available. We're doing Oompa bands. We're doing barrel tapping. We're doing stein hoisting. Crafts for the kids. They can come make alpine hats, which
You're throwing down. It sounds like, Larry.
Yeah,
throw
absolutely.
down.
Yes.
Hoisting is like straight out, right?
Yeah.
Hold
right.
it
How
straight
long
out.
can you hold it up there?
Yeah, and I'm terrible at this game, but I make a good judge. So
There you go. And you got to have those. Larry, you were talking about drinking liters. I got to be honest, and folks wouldn't know this. They'd say you're lying looking at me. I get full drinking liters, man.
It's a
Because
leader.
anytime I'm drinking a
Yes.
liter, I've probably had a pretzel as big as my head.
Yeah.
And then I've had that Schweinhaxe and all of that. And then I drink a liter with it, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. So I
can
usually
do
go
2.
for the half liters just because I want to have more than one there. But,
Well, plus
we've got a few comments here on Oktoberfest in the season. See, my birthday is September 23rd. So mine is right on the first day of fall. So I know when it officially starts there. And Billy, I agree. Down here in the South, it's hard to say September is fall. We still keep a lot of the heat in there. And you're right. I can finally have a fest beer, and I love those so much, and I'm looking forward to it. I also saw a comment on here. I'm missing it now, but someone mentioned that they're looking forward to our Oktoberfest show. Larry, every year we sit down and we take 6, 10, or 12 different Martins Fest beers, whatever, and we blind taste them and judge them. No rules, no BJCP or anything. We're just like, did we like this? Did we enjoy this? And we sit down and we do a little show on that. So for those that enjoy that show, we just talked about it last night, probably recording somewhere around September 10th. And we've got a full schedule this year, so that's actually going to be a bonus episode. That will be an extra one in our normal schedule, but we can't miss that one. We can't miss that one.
We have
usually
to
make
do
some
that.
Obatsta. We bring some sauerkraut and get some brats, and we throw down, man. It's
you have
Oktoberfest fantasticness. Larry, thank you so much for joining us. We've really enjoyed it chatting with you. If people want to know what is going down at Crooked Hammock, what's going to be the best way for them to keep up with what is going on?
So you can see us, of course, on the web. Our social media feeds are active and relevant, so you can see what's going on there. That's usually the best way to engage with us. I always encourage people, if they are fans of ours, to join our loyalty program called The Kickback. You get weekly emails from the coordinators at each of our locations that'll tell you exactly what's going on. We're really event-driven. We're really experientially driven. So we've always got cool stuff happening. A lot of stuff you wouldn't expect, right? We do farmers markets in the parking lot on a regular basis. All the things you would expect, yoga, cornhole, trivia,
all
things
that.
I need in my life,
Good stuff. Yeah.
And we do huge activations and lots of events. And it's the kind of thing you can bring your kids to, especially the fest, which, we kick off, I believe on the Saturday, the 24th is our big date. Is that the date? No, and I want to get this right or I'm going to get yelled at.
Yeah. Make sure we put the right word.
Double
out there.
check. Double check.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now. I'm not going to mess this up, right? So the magic date is Saturday, the 23rd. We will start
23rd.
our activation actually Friday, the 22nd. It's a double secret for if you want to get in early. And Oktoberfest will be on tap earlier than that, but we will be running the full activation, the Oompa bands, and all the beer lineups starting that weekend. We will run it for 2 weeks, 3 weekends. So find a time, hit your local hammock, see the Oompa band, and get yourself a liter. We're doing souvenir mugs for a deal this year too. So smaller price, bigger glass, smaller price, bigger pour. And all of these beers are responsibly around 5%. So you can come and drink all of them and feel like you're having a good time. And then right behind that, we'll be opening up Backyard Beer Club. So our member club for next year that includes a subscription to almost all the cool beers we make throughout the year and a discount on pours when you visit us. And then we'll roll right into holiday season. We do a thing called Holidays at the Hammock. We get snow machines going. Santa comes,
nice.
Hanukkah Harry and Santa come to visit.
Good times, man.
Hanukkah
Good
Harry.
times.
Okay.
Hanukkah, yep. Brukata Adonai, I got to represent for the tribe.
Yes.
But I've dressed up like Santa Claus plenty of times.
Yeah, you just let it start growing a little more
gotta
now.
start
You'll
growing
be good to
now,
go, man.
though.
You'll be good to go.
But please come visit us and let us know what you think about our beer, either on the web or on Untapped, and we will look forward to sharing a pint with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Larry. We really
Excellent.
appreciate you joining us, man. Been great chatting with you. Awesome. Y'all, thank you so much for you joining us this week. We appreciate it. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We're Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink fest beer. Cheers. Clear. Larry, thanks, man. Good chatting with you. All the beery topics.
Oh, we got the loop thing going on with the outros.
See, I don't know when this thing's on or off. I just can't. It's
Just fight the
my,
fight.
my
we'll just keep
software is a little picky
forever.
there. Yeah.
Fight
Larry,
the fight for metal.
your show will actually go out a week from Saturday. So we got a beer fest we did last week that'll go out.
That's
so yours will go out whatever. What's that? The 10th, Brian? Is that what you said? The 10th?
The 9th. I think
9th.
it's the 9th.
9th, but we will get
my date's wrong on the
we'll get
run
that
of
out
show.
to everybody, get it over to your PR folks and stuff. So
They always find it, which is great.
yeah,
And then
they'll figure
they're
it out, right?
You said that?
Yes,
I was like,
I
you
did.
You knew what
I
you were
did,
getting when you
yeah.
sent me.
Billy, thanks for joining us, man. Hope you have a good night as well. Thanks for hanging, man. Thanks for having. And they're ready. I think we were talking here about I think that was maybe commented when you were talking about all your Oktoberfest shenanigans there. So,
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great.
It's good stuff.
I when I came on board with these guys, I was looking at the budget for the events group, and I was like, "That's a lot of money." And they're like, "Yeah, we have fun."
Yeah, we're gonna throw down, man. We're not.
But I'm
We're
like,
not gonna play around here.
All right, I can.
Yeah,
See that,
yeah.
All
good
right,
stuff.
guys, I got a boogie in 20 minutes. I have to be ready for another interview. But you guys
All
are
right, man.
awesome.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Enjoy the beer. I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about it much, but if you've got questions, hit me and I will
Okay.
answer them for you.
It was good.
I'm glad you liked it.
Cool.
that beer, it's funny. Everybody's like, why are we making wit beer? I'm like, well, the #1 selling craft IRI SKU in America is a wit beer.
Is a wit beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, and
so
we
that's
can,
why.
we can make a good one because I know how
And
to
you
do
did.
that. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. I appreciate that. And everybody's
Yes,
like,
sir.
I don't understand it. I'm like, don't understand it. Just drink it.
That's all you got to do. That's it, man.
All right.
Easy enough.
Gentlemen, it's been a
Cheers,
pleasure.
Larry. We'll see you,
Thanks for
man.
your
Have a
time.
good
Cheers.
evening.
You too.
Y'all, we are going to end the stream now. If you are a Patreon supporter, we're going to throw the link into our Discord chat. You can come join us for the after party. We would definitely love to have you hang with us. So y'all have a good one. And are we remote? Are we here next week? I don't think so. I think we're
I
starting.
don't think
We're going
we
into our
are.
beer festival, so it'll be
Yeah.
we'll be 2 weeks that we'll be back here. So I don't even know if we're back in 2 weeks. We got beer
think
fest like
it's
2
3.
weeks in a row. So
Is it
we'll
3?
post. Follow us
I
on the
don't know.
socials. We'll get it
Yeah.
all updated. But y'all have a good week. We'll see you soon-ish. Yeah.
Figure it out.
Cheers.